Hey everyone, Sophie here. Before this week's episode of I Love This Thing So Fricking Much, I just wanted to say thank you. On behalf of both Melissa and myself, thank you to our listeners who download our show every week and leave such kind reviews, and thank you to our guests who volunteer your time to be a part of the show. This podcast has been a bright spot in our lives this year, and it would not be possible without your support. Now, I am so excited to tell you that we are currently recording episodes for our 2021 season. So, if you have something that you love so freaking much, consider this your invitation to be a guest on our show. You can find us at Through the Window on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr. That is THROU, the window. We have links to our podcast entry form on all those social media sites. You can also email us at throughthewindowmedia@gmail.com. I can't wait to hear about all the things you love. And now it's time for a very special episode of I Love This Thing So Fricking Much. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to I Love This Thing So Fricking Much, a podcast about passion. My name is Sophie Katz, and today I am joined by Melissa Block, a modern-day Midge Maisel and an aspiring director and performer. You may also know her as the co-founder of Through the Window Media and the sound editor of this very podcast. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Why, thank you, Sophie, for having me on our show.
It's so cool to have you on this side of the production process, I have to say.
Yes, it's definitely weird for me, and I'm usually, the one hiding behind the computer, editing all these podcasts, so I'm very happy to be on the other side learning what it's like.
Oh, it's a blast, it really is. So, as you know, but for our audience, here is how this works. Melissa will have 3 minutes to talk about something that she loves. This can be a person, place, thing, concept, activity, anything she wants. Our only requirement is that she loves it wholeheartedly and wants to tell us why. Are you ready, Melissa?
I am ready.
Excellent. Got my timer here. Now, what do you love so freaking much?
What I love so freaking much is my football team, the Baltimore Ravens. Now, for those of you that don't know, I'm going to give a little backstory as to why this team is so important, not only to me, but to the city of Baltimore. Back in 1983, we did have a team that was called the Baltimore Colts, and unfortunately, the football team left the town in the middle of the night, and Baltimore had no football team for over 10 years. In 1996, it was announced that the owner of the Cleveland team would be bringing over a team to Baltimore, starting over a new franchise and giving Baltimore some fresh hope that we did not have before. Growing up, I had the opportunity of attending Ravens games with my father. My father is an original PSL owner, which stands for Personal Seat License, which means he has had season tickets since the Ravens first came to town. And I've been going with him to games ever since. Now, when the Ravens first came to town, my father, and to paraphrase what he always wanted me to say, and he's very proud of this, is he always wanted to say that he took me to our original stadium called Memorial Stadium. And at the end of the first season, when the Ravens played in 1996, there were people that were ripping up these seats. And I got to witness this ripping up of seats as a young 3-year-old, trying to understand why people were so attached to this stadium. Needless to say, it was a little terrifying, but now I look back at it, so that way I can say, to the words, for my father's sake, this is for my father, I was there. Now, since then, I have been growing up and going to games since that time, despite that little scary moment there. We have these wonderful rivalry games against one of our divisional rivalry teams called the Pittsburgh Steelers. These games are probably my most favorite games to watch, but also for anybody that knows about this rivalry, it's one of the biggest rivalries in the NFL. And when we play these games, not only do we poke fun at each other at who's the better team, but also I would say that it makes each of our individual teams better. Another reason why I love the Ravens is the first time we won the Super Bowl was in the 2000 season, and we won it officially in 2001. And not only did we win the Super Bowl, but the town made a huge deal over the Super Bowl. And in fact, there was a parade a few days later, and to this day, I will never forget that my father actually took me out of school.
Go ahead and finish your thought.
Took me out of school to take me to this parade, and my mother was not happy that I missed a half day of school.
Well, thank you for telling us about the Baltimore Ravens today.
Thank you.
Oh, it sounds like you have lots of fond memories about this team, and it's all like the Baltimore Ravens are really tied up in your identity and in your community's identity. Could you talk a little more about the community aspect of this?
Absolutely, I can. In fact, it's great that you mentioned this. So since the Ravens came to town, as I mentioned, 1996, we have a tradition in the town that's called Purple Fridays, which is where we wear any Ravens gear, purple gear. To those of you at home, you can't see this, but Sophie can see how I'm dressed at the moment. I'm wearing a purple dress with Ravens earrings and a Ravens necklace, and I have so much Raven gear, and we all wear our Ravens gear with so much pride, not only on Purple Fridays, but year-round.
Let's talk a little more about the game itself. You've been to a lot of these games. Do you have any memories of, like, you mentioned the players ripping up the seats, but what about happening during the game itself before the ripping up seats happened?
Well, unfortunately, I don't remember too much more about that specific game because I was 3 years old when I went to that. I still have that vivid image. However, one game that sticks out to me in mind is when I want to say early middle school years approximately, one game, and I would say that this was the defining moment that really got me into going to games even more so in the future, was there was this game we were playing against our rivalry team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it was a home game, and we were defeating them. I think the score was like 28-0 by the end of the third quarter, and I don't remember the exact scoring by the end of it, but I remember just really, really getting into it. And I would also add to that every year I have these pre-rituals with my father, in particular with the preseason games. We always went to preseason games together too.
Are you a fan of any particular players on the team?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say from the OG starting team of the Ravens, I would definitely say Ray Lewis. It was one of my first football jerseys, and I still have it to this day because we made sure to get a size big enough that I could fit into as I grew up. And I would also say Ed Reed. Reed! That's a thing that we say every time Ed Reed comes out, for any Baltimore Raven fans that know who Ed Reed is.
Is there anything that you don't like about the Baltimore Ravens? And if so, how do you handle that?
That's a great question, too. Yes. There are two things that I'll say, and I'll try to keep it short. The first thing is sometimes during these games, I don't necessarily agree with some of the play calling that the coach makes. And for those of you that know football, know that, the play calls are made by the offensive coach, the head coach, and the defensive coach. So sometimes I don't agree with that. The other thing I don't necessarily like is if and when we lose a game, I don't like how our fan community always reacts. Mm-hmm. I don't like how negative people get, and they just get very nitpicky. And overall, I like to say we just didn't play our best that game. And we're going to wake up tomorrow, and we're going to start the next week.
Yeah, I certainly hope that, at least on some level, it's about having fun. I mean, winning's always nice, but if you go and... I assume the players are out there because they enjoy playing, win or lose.
Absolutely. I agree.
And in any way, you make good memories with your dad, with the rest of your family, and with the rest of the people of Baltimore.
I do. And that's one of the hardest things about not, being near the stadium as I was when I was growing up, is I do miss going to games with my dad, because every year we always have at least one regular season game that I was assigned to, since my father always had pretty much everybody lined up for the season, because there's only 8 regular games at home, so we had pretty much 8 people lined up. Once in a while, if somebody dropped out at the last minute because of X, Y, and Z reasons, I would be like the substitute, and I would get to go with him, and I'd be like, let me get my jersey and my hat and some shoes, and let's go.
Well, at least you can still tune in on TV when you need to.
Yes, that is true. Or via FaceTime.
And I'm gonna call you out a little bit because I've been there with you walking around with your phone out, listening to the game, and I can't see what or hear what you're listening to, but I know when something good happens because you start cheering.
This is very true. And anyone that knows me, I mean, basically, my roommates tease me too because, you know, they'll know if something good or bad's happening, as you mentioned, because they'll hear me shouting, and I get quite loud, good or bad.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
I know you meant that in the game, good or bad, your reaction shot, but
yes,
this is a whole show about passion. And
that's true.
My God, are you full of passion?
I am.
Melissa, thank you so much for being a guest on I Love This Thing So Freaking Much.
Thank you for listening to me talk about the Baltimore Ravens. Make sure to cheer for our team, folks. Woohoo!
And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in today. If you would like to learn more about the Baltimore Ravens or our guest, Melissa, you can find her social media information in the episode description. And don't forget to use the hashtag #LoveThisThingCast to tell us about the things you love. I Love This Thing So Freaking Much is a production of Through the Window Media. This episode was directed by Sophie A. Katz and edited by the lovely Melissa Block. You can find us at Through the Window on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr. That is THROU, the window, at all the social media sites. Be good to yourself, be kind to each other, and you'll hear from us again soon.